Ashe. I believe that the Arthur Ashe statue should be placed on Monument Avenue. Yet I'm reminded of a suggestion that the Christopher Columbus statue should be removed and replaced by Arthur's statue. I believe that Christopher Columbus represents a very important part of the history for all Americans, black, white, and Italian alike. I agree with the mayor and council members that the North Boulevard should be renamed Arthur Ashe Boulevard. And if a statue is to be removed, let it be Stonewall Jackson. Why Stonewall Jackson? Because Stonewall Jackson rests on the intersection of Monument and the Boulevard. Why Stonewall Jackson? Because for much too long, Richmond has revered and historically promoted the Confederacy era as an invincible history, a history that symbolizes anti-Americanism and racism, a dark history that should be promoted no longer. Some say that it is a black and white issue. But Arthur Ashe was not about black rights or white rights, but he was the human rights for all Americans and all nations, regardless of their creed, color, and frailties. Arthur gives Richmond and Virginia an opportunity to let go of this dark history and promote the light and bright history that this international hero brings. It's time to promote our bright history. We should place the Arthur Ashe statue on the newly named Arthur Ashe Boulevard, all of the boulevard, and surround him with our bright past. Surround him with statues, with the statue of Doug Wilder, Oliver Hill, Linwood Holton, and Henry Marsh. America and the whole world is waiting for Richmond to move forward.
Question. I had a question.
No, thank you.
Ms. Edgebeth?
Yes.
You threw me. You said at the intersection of the boulevard, which makes it on Monument Avenue. So
Monument, yes, Monument and the Boulevard.
Thank you.
Beverly Reynolds is next, followed by David Shaw.
Yes, please.
Yeah, because I'm hearing some of the monologues all the way up here. If you have to do that, then I want you to lower your voices so that that they don't disrupt the proceedings.
In other words, with Channel
Thank
12,
you.
please refrain from your live interviews.
Excuse me, Mr. Richardson. Channel 12 is in my district, and you leave them alone.
Well, let them speak while you're talking.
I guess neither one of us are saying much now.
Ms. Reynolds, you may proceed.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Beverly W. Reynolds. I have owned and managed an art gallery in Richmond for the past 18 years. I also live on Allen Avenue, a block off of Monument Avenue where the Lee statue is, and I support having the Arthur Ashe statue on Monument Avenue. I hope tonight will bring a resolution to the site selection for the Arthur Ashe Monument. However, the next urgent priority is to conduct a careful review of the flawed process by which the proposed sculpture was adopted and advanced on the community. Arthur Ashe was a world-class athlete and hero. We should insist on a world-class selection process to choose an appropriate memorial to one of Richmond's finest citizens. I propose that an international competition be established with an expert panel of judges. The current sculpture should be included, along with proposals from artists who have been excluded from this very closed and narrow process. The current statue is of limited artistic merit. I am also deeply concerned by the commercial aspects of this piece, with the artist claiming rights to produce a second sculpture to sell elsewhere. Also, there's been talk of models of the sculpture that could be sold for commercial gain. The sculpture for the city of Richmond must be unique, magnificent, and only for Richmond. If we look back in history, we see that it took 17 years for the Robert E. Lee Monument to be approved. The parallels are strong in these two cases, in that a favorite Richmond sculptor, Edward Valentine, and personal friend of the Lees,
Ms. Reynolds, your time is up, ma'am.
was at first chosen, but after careful review, his piece was not selected. Instead, an important French sculptor who had won the Prix de Rome and the French Salon Medal of Honor was finally selected. There should be no rush to make such a lasting decision. I urge the Council to open the selection process. Anything less would be shortchanging the memory of this great Richmonder and American.
David Shaw is next, followed by Mark J. Shively. A handheld mic.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Shaw, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Arthur Ashe statue. I do support the statue being put on Monument Avenue, and I also support the name of the street on the boulevard to be named Arthur Ashe Boulevard. I did not know Mr. Ashe personally, but I did know his father when he was on the police force, and I attended Mr. Ashe's funeral, and I just wanted to say that I support whatever decision that the council comes up with. But I do support the statue on the monument and naming the street on the boulevard Arthur Ashe Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark J. Shively is next, followed by Robert Lynch.
Good evening. My name is Mark J. Shively, and I live at 2420 Grove Avenue. The issue tonight is much more than just the placement of a statue. It is the issue of the right to choose. As the Civil War champions currently on Monument Avenue fought for the state's right to choose, the uproar over this Arthur Ashe statue by the people is because the government is trying to tell us where it must go. We, the people, want the right to choose. Richmond is a historic city with major ties to the Civil War. We reap significant tourist dollars from those who seek to learn from that tragic time in our history. The theme on Monument Avenue is the Civil War. If we wish to honor someone, let it be those freedmen, African Americans, that had the courage to choose to fight for their beliefs and loyalties, whether it was for the North or the South. Let Monument Avenue maintain its theme of the Civil War and the right to choose. The pose and feel of the Arthur Ashe statue doesn't fit the stoic, formal setting of Monument Avenue. It is freer, jubilant, and more casual. And the children, do they belong with war heroes? Do we want Arthur Ashe to become lost with the soldiers of another era? I would like to see Arthur Ashe replace the Columbus statue in Byrd Park. Columbus can be relocated to the Riverfront Project, where he is closer to the sea and commerce for which he is famous. Arthur Ashe's triumphant pose will show his victory over the bigotry of the government which kept him off these tennis courts. The casual dress and the children are a right for a park. Athletes and others passing by can draw incentive and inspiration from the triumphant pose. The children on this memorial racially represent us all, for we all look up to Arthur Ashe and what he represented and achieved. I also feel appropriate and advantageous to change the name of the boulevard to Arthur Ashe Boulevard.
Mr. Shively, your time is up, sir.
Well, I also want to propose that the Sports Hall of Fame also be located on Arthur Ashe Boulevard with its proximity to other museums to create a museum district centered on the near the Arthur Ashe Boulevard. Let us choose, Richmond, to move ahead as a leader in education and understanding for a colorblind society where all of us work and play together as we enter the 21st century. Thank you.
Robert Lynch is next, followed by Lucille Burke.
Robert Lynch, citizen, Richmond. Heroes are chosen by the people. They are not mandated by a few people in government. The Vietnam War was unpopular, but there's a monument to the Vietnam soldiers because we honor their courage. We do not question their motives and why they went. We can still honor the Confederate heroes for their courage in fighting, but not necessarily believe in their political beliefs. And it distresses me. I'm getting off the tangent here for a second, but it distresses me. I've heard talk of overtones of racism. I have heard people of all colors propose different locations for this statue. But if a white man, I suppose, says that he is against Monument Avenue, then the supposition seems to be by certain of the media that he is speaking only for racial reasons. I would not propose, Chesty Puller is one of the greatest Marines to come out of Virginia, but if you had a theme park or a museum dedicated to the Air Force heroes, I would not put Chesty Puller there. That does not mean Chesty Puller may not be deserving of honor. We can honor Arthur Ashe by finding out where the people of Richmond want him. I just want to say real briefly, I can't be as humorous as Letterman, but I intended to be brief, so I have 10 best reasons not to put Arthur Ashe on monument. 10, monument not the busiest street in Richmond, more visible elsewhere. 9, artistically, statue of anyone new would clash with statues of earlier era. 8, section proposes complete architecturally and historically. 7, better locations have been proposed. We need to consider them. 6, if Richmond is city of monuments, we need more than one street of monuments. 5, an area devoted just to Confederate heroes is unique to Richmond and a tourist attraction and should be maintained. It doesn't have to be the whole of monument. I'm
Mr.
talking
Lynch,
about
your
historical.
time is up.
Can I give you the top
If you
reason?
do it real quickly.
Top reason is the people should be consulted. I went to fast forward, and the people were talking about all these great ideas for the future of Richmond. But the big idea that would make them come true is that they would have some input to the government. And
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
I know my time is out, but I have to make a public apology. Some of you saw that I did not stand up when we applauded the Ashe family. I want them to know, and I want the world to know, I was making a statement simply not about Ashe, but that when the mayor or a public official tells me when to applaud, I don't always do it.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
sometimes
Lynch.
think that they should applaud when the people tell them when to applaud.
Thank you, Mr.
Maybe it's a
Lynch.
naive idea. You're welcome.
Lucille Burt is next, followed by Lena Lies Woodleaf.
My name is Lucille Burt, and I'm a citizen of Richmond.
There's obviously a mistake in the order. You desired to speak, and you came up with one of the groupings of individuals?
No, Ms. Moore did not come up, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Could you let her speak?
Yeah, I will. But when we indicated if there were any individuals who wished to relinquish their right, and we had the individuals who did not wish to relinquish their right to come up, the clerk then recalculated the list and derived from the list the individuals who came up and wanted to speak. If you weren't, all right, come right up and give the clerk your name, and as soon as Mrs. Burke is through, we'd be more than happy to hear what you have to say. If that is the case with this gentleman as well, then you follow right behind her.
And after Mrs. Burke makes her comments, Ms. Moore, you'll be next. Ms. Burke, you may.
Okay. As one of the world's national heroes.
All right, but now, wait a minute. Wait. Look, if some folk have been inspired since the last couple of speakers to speak, that's unfair to the process. Now, what I am assuming, no, sit down, sir. What I am assuming is that you all were ignored or didn't hear the request, and therefore I'm going to honor the individuals who are now coming up. But I'm going to cut it off after this young lady. I don't want anybody else who just got a surge a few moments ago to say something to do so. Take these names, Madam Clerk. Proceed, Mrs. Burke.
Thank you. As one of the world's national heroes, my vision that Arthur Ashe was of the greatest. In my opinion, he is worthy. It is worthy for him to be, for his statue to be erected at any particular site, because he deserved this, being he was the best. And the time has come is that this city would be able to see him when tours and different other cities are visiting Richmond, Virginia, that his tall statue would be so visible that they could see it when they get off number 64 and 95. That's why my vision has proven to me that he is the right person for this. The main purpose is for this is because I support the former Governor Doug Wallace's statement location doesn't matter too much. The main thing is where he is, and have him tall so that everyone can see him without have to run across the street. Only one criticism I have for Monument Avenue at the present time, the traffic is real congested, but I'm sure the city mayor will do something about that. And that would be very unsafe for kids because they'll be running back and forth across the street.
Ms. Burke?
But just let your mind and give your heart to God, and he'll direct your path. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, you're next. And following Ms. Moore will be Lena-Lise Moore. I'm sorry, excuse me. Lena-Lise Woodleaf.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Mamie Moore. I reside at 2619 Sims Avenue. I'm the State Secretary of the Patriot Party, an independent third party that was formed to put power back into the hands of the American citizens to make social and public policy, not career politicians. Arthur Ashe, I'm given to understand, was a man with a deep sense of and a desire for democracy, fairness, justice, and inclusion. The latter part of his life was devoted to the pursuit of these lofty ideals. If a statue placed anywhere would have achieved this, I am sure that Brother Ashe would have created and placed one years before his death. If indeed the placement of Brother Ashe's statue is a decision of the people, then City Council has an opportunity tantamount to the South African election to strike a blow for democracy, justice, fairness, and inclusion by placing this question before the entire citizenry of Richmond through referendum on the November 7th ballot, whereby allowing full opportunity for all citizens to get registered to voice their opinion. This, in my humble opinion, would be one of the greatest tributes to Brother Ashe. Thank you.
Thank you, and we are sorry that it may appear you were overlooked.
Lena-Lise Woodleaf is next.
I'm Lena-Lise Woodleaf, and I live 719 West 32nd Street. I try to be as succinct and eloquent as I can. I was a BFA student. I got my fine arts degree here in Richmond, and for the past 10 years I tried to earn my living in media, but I've been a practicing artist and sculptor. And so I guess professionally and artistically I can say that I have seen the statue. I've been in the room with the statue, and I can reassure everyone it's a wonderful memorial. It's classical in the sense that it is a figure of the man, and it incorporates the things he wanted to incorporate. Luckily he did have input on this, and it incorporates things that he thought were as important as his work, education, the children, the tennis. It's contemporary, as he was a contemporary leader, but it's a dignified piece, and I think it smoothly integrates things. I think it's accessible to children visually, and I think that's an important thing. Maybe we won't put it next to Rodin and a fine arts museum, but I think as a memorial, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece. I'd like to say I don't want to be redundant here, but I know that there was a long and arduous process taken with the site choice that went through City Council, and it went through the Planning Committee, and I know that the considered deliberation was extensive. Even I had great ideas. Bird Park doesn't sound like a bad idea to me, but it was shot down for good reason. These people did their homework, and it was financially and physically not viable. There were 2 viable sites in the end on Monument, and so I would like, if it's possible for us not to retract the work that's been done and to honor and respect that work to some extent. I think the monument is a good choice. I would say a monument is not a living role model, and that one has to have living closer to some kids than to other kids. I think it's a memorial monument that you would go see like any other.
Ms. Woodleaf?
Yes.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Okay. I just would like to see the city keep its dignity. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret P. Howlett is next, followed by Charles Willis.
Good evening. I'm Margaret Howlett, a resident in the 300 block of West Lee Street. In respect to the family, I understand and empathize your concerns. Though I'm not totally opposed to the suggestion concerning Monument Avenue, I step forward tonight not as a Johnny-come-lately, but as one who offered a suggestion to the Planning Commission when I learned that sites were being proposed. I envision the statue of Arthur Ashe, Jr. placed on the block of land which encompasses Brook Road, West Lee Street, Belvedere, and Duval Streets. This corner begins one of the corridors to historic Jackson Ward. Placed at the right angle, the statue would face the area which a young Arthur Ashe called home. It's easily accessible to Interstate I-95, as well as travelers and commuters along North and South Belvedere. Most importantly, it is a passageway through which many inner-city youth travel each day. We could not provide them a statue of a better role model. I would like to ask Mr. Ashe's family and those who knew him best to consider this piece of land. Consider it in context with his ideals and philosophy, his humbleness, his love of family, neighborhood ties, and his genuine love of children. Give thought and consideration to this piece of land as you did the place for Ashe's entombment. Your choice at that time displayed the return to family ties. Place the statue among family ties in historic Jackson Ward.
Charles Willis is next,
Thank you, Ms. Howlett.
followed by Odell Byrd, Jr.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bob, City Council members, my name is Charles Willis. I reside on the south side of Richmond, 2710 Calverton Street, in the wonderful heart of Jefferson Davis Park. Good to see you, Mr. Chambers. I wanted to ask, before I begin, if there were any children. I had spoke with some children earlier and wanted them to come down with me because I am one that's an advocate for youth. And if there are any kids...
Some children have spoken, sir, but it's not appropriate.
I know they have, and
yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I want them, and I'm going to try to use that 1 minute. I have kind of modified my
Yeah, but no, I do
message.
mind. I don't want you to pull anybody out of the audience. Young man, if you want to come down and stand, you may do so.
Thank you. And my reason for this is because I think that Mr. Ashe would want it that way. So often we forget about the focus that a lot of our heroes and others that push for certain issues focus on. And one of his focuses, the major focus, were the youth. I only beg that City Council, as you go behind chambers tonight, and I am glad, Mr. Mayor, that you all have decided that you will make a decision tonight, that you remember not only this young man, but those that I spoke with earlier and those that are not here able to be with us today, and that your decision be the focus of the youth because they are the future of our city of Richmond. Again, I want to thank you, and please don't have us out here like Michael Jackson new record. Makes us want to scream. We hope that you don't go back there, and I'm not trying to be funny, but don't try to go back there and order a pizza. We're going to be out here waiting for you all to make a decision tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, young man.
Thank you.
Odell Byrd is next, followed by Charles Chambliss.
Good evening, Mayor, to the council, and family of Arthur Ashe. My name is Odell Byrd, Jr. I'm a Richmond historian and author of 2 books on Richmond. I support Resolution 222, 223, 225. However, for 24, I think it would be a disgrace to tear down Mellon Roads and Tall Hamlets to put a park downtown when we need some economic development downtown. We need jobs for people who will be off welfare soon. These buildings can be turned into office buildings or small sections for entrepreneurs or business people or training centers for the kids. It would be a disgrace to tear down downtown Richmond to put a park. You can use Arthur Ashe Center, redevelop it, extend it, renovate it. You can put the research center in Arthur Ashe Center. You can put the Hall of Fame in Arthur Ashe Center. You can develop that area into a park. It is located by I-64, I-95, the 64 corridor. It's easily accessible. It's on the boulevard. Yes, rename the boulevard Arthur Ashe Boulevard. The Arthur Ashe Center is right there. I mean, don't spend our money for something that's unnecessary. Thank you.
Charles Chambers is next, followed by Floyd Buchanan.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, city manager, my name is Charles Chambers, live in the 6th District, 27th Street. Basically, there are only several points that I want to address. I've decided not to make the address that I initially proposed. First, I believe that the logical location of the statue is either in Byrd Park, replacing the Christopher Columbus monument, or another location in close proximity to the Ashe Center. I realize that there are those, and with all deference to those members of this family, who believe that Monument Avenue is an appropriate location. I don't believe that Monument Avenue, as presently constituted, is an appropriate location for the statue. Obviously, there are those in this audience who believe that the persons and the caricatures located there represent heroes to some, they represent a disgrace to others. Perhaps if the decision is made regarding the location on Monument Avenue, some consideration would be done to relocating those other monuments, perhaps at some point closer to the Museum of the Confederacy. Finally, I realize that there are those who want to make the debate Monument Avenue and what else should appear there, or race and its implications. I don't believe those are the debates to be addressed or resolved tonight, but hopefully we will revisit those at a point close in time. Thank you.
Floyd Buchanan is next, followed by Donald Hatcher, and then Reverend Anton Edwards.
My name is Floyd Buchanan, resident of Richmond for 10 years. Mr. Mayor, City Council, citizens of Richmond.
Mr. Buchanan, pull your microphone up, please, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to express myself. I have a bond with Arthur Ashe. As a victim of discrimination in this country and outside, as a child and an adult, I've learned how to overcome discrimination and disabilities. Mr. Ashe is an excellent example of perseverance and integrity. I ask you to consider carefully a location for Mr. Ashe's statue. There are many options, many choices before you as to the location of the statue. Our decisions now will be a part of history. Let us show the citizens of Richmond, the state of Virginia, the United States of America, the world, that we can remember and appropriately pay homage to a fine example of the American spirit. I believe the tennis courts that once denied Mr. Ashe should finally welcome him as proof that by perseverance and integrity, the American dream is alive and well and living in Richmond. Thank you.
Mr. Hatcher, you're next. And then Reverend Edwards, you're next.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and all the members of council and ordinance. My name is Donald Hatcher, and I live at 904 St. James Street, City of Richmond. It behooves me what goes on in this city. We hear all kinds of talk about the Civil War was about state rights. Well, if we look at history right, state rights in Virginia were that blacks had no rights. Now, the Constitution says that all men had the same rights. So while we keep living a history that is untrue and supporting an evil that should be put to rest, it's strange to me. We look at Columbus and Byrd Park. Columbus didn't discover America. My people was here before Columbus knew there was people here, and before he even saw the shores of this land. We have a history in this country that perpetrates how to keep people in prison and how to take away the thoughts of people. It amazed me as a black man that I will never be called a man. It's always boy. We have to face reality. Those generals that sitting up on Monument Avenue stood for everything evil that could be mentioned. When you think about all the evil atrocities that were done to black folks in the name of they had the rights because their state law said they could do it, it is time for you blacks sitting in the city of Richmond to show the world that it's time to put an end to this. There is a God, and we believe in God. Then let's start acting like there is a God and perpetrating what is right. We are losing our young generation. I served in Europe for 2.5 years, and
Mr.
all
Hatcher?
I saw was Confederate flags. I want an end put to it. Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you, sir. Reverend Edwards does not want to speak, so therefore Irving Patterson is next. That also concludes the list of Richmond City residents. These are now the surrounding counties.
All right, don't get upset. Don't get upset. If there are other Richmond City residents who were not included on that list, please just make your way right over here.
Is this the right height? Mr. Mayor.
Now these are individuals who indicated that they wanted to speak.
I didn't mean to get ahead of it.
No, that's all right, sir.
I'm
No,
Irving
you're
Patterson,
fine. You're
resident
fine.
of Enrico County, and I would like to thank you for letting me be here.
Okay.
Statues are symbolism. Symbolism comes from emotion, and obviously this is an emotional issue. I think we've handled it right well, though, and the council should be commended for the public forum that does exist. I would like to agree with Mr. Jewell that the most important thing is that the statue be put at a certain place for the correct reason. I'm not so sure where that is. There's only one disadvantage that I see with Monument Avenue. If you have a decision to put it on Monument Avenue, you leave yourself open due to some incompatibility with the Confederate stuff and Arthur Ashe to leave the situation open to ridicule. Can you imagine stand-up New York comedians having a field day talking about the citizens of Richmond being able to sleep well because Arthur Ashe is guarding the second line of defense for the cities, and he'll smite those Yankees the same way David slayed Goliath and ran the Philistines off. So I did tell this to Mr. Boone, and he was screaming, I like it, I like it. Let me mention one or two other things. I would strongly suggest that the Richmond Arena, if it could be converted and modernized into tennis courts, that could be a memorial to Arthur Ashe. I support changing the name of the boulevard to Ashe Boulevard. I would suggest that a good location for the statue would be at the north end of the 9th Street Bridge. This is not original with me, where the 10 Twin Towers are and the theater is. I've gone through that. That's the most upscale area in town, and I've had nobody offer an objection to that. I think, though, some deference should be made to the Ashe family. 100 years ago, when they were talking about putting the statue of the Confederate soldiers and sailors up, they said that that couldn't go on Monument Avenue because Monument Avenue could only be for great people. Wake up, Mr. Richardson.
So now, your time is up.
Can I have a couple of minutes because Mr. Richardson will
2
like it?
seconds.
Yes, ma'am. So that should offend us today, and I think we can do something about it. I would strongly recommend a statue on Monument Avenue in the historic district to young men, African-American men of African-American descent who served both sides in the Civil War. And nothing should make people spin in their graves more than the thought of black grunts on Monument Avenue. Thank you very much.
I believe I saw Ms. Stovall here next.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, City Manager Bob, and to the Arthur Ashe family. I want to thank you for remaining part of this process with us this evening. It's my pleasure to represent the interests and concerns of historic Jackson Ward community, and as such I'm here this evening to request and to advocate that Mr. Ashe's monument as well as the African American Sports Hall of Fame be located in our community. The addition of these esteemed properties to our community would provide a significant and contemporary period of social history and sports accomplishment to the archives of Jackson Ward and the city of Richmond.
The foresight of our citizens and government have effectively saved and preserved what is now designated as a national landmark, the historic Jackson Ward community. We are preparing ourselves to market our history, our legacy, and our nationally registered landmark community to the largest and most lucrative marketplace of the world, the marketplace of tourism. As heritage tourism and African American tourism in particular continues to market as a highly sought after tourist destination, we in historic Jackson Ward are rapidly preparing for the thousands of visitors from around the world. We feel that Mr. Ashe's memory and the accomplishments of his life as husband, son, brother, father, sportsman, and humanitarian are the characteristics of fortitude and virtue that will serve to set a new standard of decency, decorum, and democracy in our world. Historic Jackson Ward stands ready and able to provide a place of honor to the monument that memorializes the greatness of a gentle giant, Mr. Arthur Ashe. We advocate that the boulevard be named in honor of Mr. Ashe, and most importantly, wherever this beautiful monument might be located, that the city commit to maintaining and keeping it at world-class standards. I was very saddened to hear one of the members speak to the press about the fact that they wanted it on Monument Avenue because they know the city will maintain that. I never, ever want to hear any citizen think or even feel that other communities of this city of Richmond are not as well maintained as Monument Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I might remind the speaker that the statues on Monument Avenue were all cleaned in 1990, and the Columbus statue and the A.P. Hill statue was not cleaned, so that it does receive quite a bit more special treatment than the others, whether we want to accept it or not.
Michael Campbell is next.
I have an interesting suggestion. I suggest that we take all of the statues on Monument Avenue and give them to the Museum of the Confederacy, because they appreciate that kind of thing, and start afresh and place on Monument Avenue things that are now going to create a new Richmond and a Richmond that's moving forward. Let's put those antique statues in a museum and let people who are into that come and view them and see them. That is my suggestion. Let's clear Monument Avenue and start fresh. Give all those statues to Museum of the Confederacy. Let them build a nice little temple or whatever they want to do to worship those things in the way they like, and then let's move on. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. If you stand up again, they're going to help you find a seat outside.
Hey. Bishop Stan Macklin is next.
The mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, audience, I want to say I really appreciate, as a taxpayer, the opportunity to be able to express my opinion. As a world traveler, I do stay a little bit out of the city, but I do pay my taxes, and so I wanted to take the opportunity to speak on this issue, which I think is very important. First of all, I would just like to say that I did have enough time. You know, I was later on the list, 115, to pick up an international guest who's with me tonight, Francis Akeem from Ghana, West Africa, and we're glad he's here to see what's happening here in America and the heartbeat of America, Richmond. Symbols are very important and should not be or bring confusion. Monument Avenue represents men who didn't want to fit in. Arthur Ashe was an individual who also didn't want to fit in. That's why the men on Monument Avenue, they formed a confederacy of states' rights to preserve their lifestyle, which happened to be anchored in slavery. Arthur Ashe left Richmond because at that time he couldn't, and wouldn't allow himself to fit into a system that was racist and didn't respect his talents as a world champion in the making. He went on to become what he refused, what Richmonders refused for him to become. He went on to become a world champion. Yes, he became a general who went about to preserve the dignity of humankind. And even in his death, he was a standout for us in the face of AIDS. I'm totally against Arthur Ashe statue being on that legacy that's represented on Monument Avenue. I think he needs to have a place where he can stand out for himself, because as I travel, he is definitely an international citizen. He's a world-class individual.
Mr. Macklin?
He deserves a place of his own.
Thank you, sir. Alan Chincias is next.
Thank you for this hearing. I will need more than a minute, but less than two, so I'll help you save your voice.
You'll have 1 minute, sir, and then we'll go to the
I
next
thank
speaker.
you for this hearing. I see the fitting place for this statue of Arthur Ashe Center, where week after week thousands of our young people gather for academic competitions, science fairs, athletic competitions, and school assemblies. Who did Arthur Ashe seek to inspire? Our young people. I further see an Arthur Ashe Boulevard stretching way down to the very tennis courts, where as a youth he was denied the opportunity to play tennis. I see a statue of a young Arthur, fingers laced in the chain links of that fence. I see a worldwide competition to create an Arthur Ashe Memorial Park around the center, where our young people assemble now and sit and lay on sidewalks, their competing team uniform colors and skin colors, lost in their laughter and relaxation before they return to compete once more inside. I see up on I-95 with its millions of travelers a giant sign, Arthur Ashe Boulevard, Arthur Ashe Memorial Park, and Tourist Information Center. What limits are there on this? Arthur Ashe accepted no limits, not even in his death. He is with us to inspire us even now as we debate. City council members, don't limit yourself. Don't limit Arthur Ashe's inspiration to a site on Monument Avenue. Create a setting with the very same spirit of guidance that fed and led Arthur in his life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Peter Martlinterno is next.
My name is Peter Moliterno. I'm a city resident and taxpayer, and I'm happy to see the city put up a monument to Arthur Ashe. I'm also glad to see the controversy because it provides an opportunity to educate each other. Just like Lee Jackson King Day, the placement of the Arthur Ashe Monument on Monument Avenue will raise questions which will provide a permanent opportunity to explain our growth. The media coverage is a great way to dedicate this statue. The contrast of placement on Monument Avenue will make the statue more visible. Let's face it, the crux of this issue is whether Monument Avenue should have only old-fashioned statues on it. The Planning Commission already picked this site as the best site, and the only real reason to put it elsewhere is to maintain the status quo. Have you noticed that the people defending the Civil War theme are from out of town? Those of us who live here would rather play down the conflict. And remember that the sound bites on national news are going to be embarrassing if the statue doesn't get put on Monument Avenue. The message is going to be that Richmond will not put a statue of Arthur Ashe on it, and that's the only reading that's going to come from out of town. Although I understand the neighbors' fear of change, I believe a new monument is a positive change. We have a choice to grow or die. This monument will bring new life to the neighborhood. The alternative is to let the existing ones fade into obscurity, which is what's going to happen without the modern context. Thank you.
Sharon Wayne is next, followed by Jacqueline Boney.
Hello, my name is Sharon Wayne. I'm a resident of Richmond as well as a native of Virginia. I take great pride in being a citizen of Richmond and the history and all that's here. And I'm not as concerned about where we place the statue as I am why we choose to exclude it and the issues that have come up here. I feel that it's time we stop finding ways to separate ourselves and create differences but find ways to come together in peace. I feel the gentlemen on Monument Avenue are treasures, and that they're treasures to us not for their battle prowess, but because they were men of honor. Arthur Ashe is also a man of honor and needs to be respected in those lights. I also feel that he also fought his battles, although he chose to fight his battles in a way of positive action versus a way of choosing violence in these days where we have glamorized violence in so many ways. I think this is a very, very important thing for us to recognize and acknowledge that there are positive ways to fight the things that are problems for us and move ahead. I feel as if we need to learn from our past experiences, and the Civil War was brother fighting brother and neighbor fighting brother, neighbor fighting neighbor.
Ms.
It's
Wayne?
time we stop and we move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Boney is next, followed by Bill Heisler.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and the Ashe family, I thank you for your patience, and I wanted to speak tonight because of the fact that I've noticed that members of my age group are highly underrepresented tonight. I'm 18 years old. I've been a resident of Richmond for 18 years, and I reside in the Caroline neighborhood. And I wanted to come and say that I'm in favor of the Arthur Ashe statue being on Monument Avenue. I don't think there's any other street in Richmond that is more appropriate for this statue. And I've been educated in Richmond Public Schools, and I've learned to appreciate Richmond. I noticed in Richmond that we take history very seriously, and that we want to make sure that it's portrayed to other people very concisely and succinctly. The issue that my peers and I talked about is the fact that we don't want the Arthur Ashe statue being so near the Confederate statues, not from a racial perspective, but just because of the fact that there seems to be no transition. And I think that we're doing a disservice to Arthur Ashe and to other people from Richmond and from around the world who made contributions if we place the statue so near. So I would be in favor of moving the statue further down Monument Avenue so that we could leave space to erect other statues that honor other people. I think we've really glorified Arthur Ashe this year. The media has really taken advantage of his name. And I think that it's good in a way because now we do have this statue, but there are going to be other people who come after Arthur Ashe who we're going to glorify just as much or even more. And I think that if we put his statue there and don't leave place for others, we're also going to omit people who played a role in creating his life and making him the great person that he was. I didn't have a chance to interact with him, and I did not know him, but I know what I've been taught and what he stood for, and I think that definitely his statue should be on Monument Avenue, but we need to take into consideration that we need to look to the future and see that there be a need for other people to be shown on Monument Avenue as well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, Miss.
Yes.
Ms. Boney.
Just as a point of clarification, you say farther down Monument.
I don't have a particular intersection.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure you're saying farther down Monument.
Right,
away
because
from the city?
the way that I've taken tours down Monument Avenue is we start where the Confederate soldiers are and just continue down. And I would like to see Monument Avenue, which is a tourist attraction, and we cannot deny that. I would like to see it as an avenue where people can continue to go down the monument and see history in transition. It's like Civil War, Arthur Ashe. We are missing a big link in our society, in Richmond society, and I think we're doing a disservice to him and to other people who have made contributions. So I would like to see, from a more historical perspective, sort of like a timeline, and we need to plan ahead. I am 18. I will I will be a resident of this city after you all are gone. There haven't been too many kids who have come. No, seriously.
Wait a minute now.
There have not been. No,
Maybe
seriously.
after the mayor's gone, Miss, we're going to be around.
Seriously, I know you all are 21, but I'm 18. Okay, no, but seriously, we are the ones who are going to need to place statues and monuments in place. And adults need to stop being so sheltered and thinking that we're thinking now, and we need to think ahead. I'm 18. There haven't been too many 18-year-olds that have come tonight to speak, but we're going to be the ones who are going to live in Richmond long after you all. This city council has passed away, and we need to think about posterity. No, I'm thinking it from a historical perspective. Once again, posterity is very important, and I think that we need to lay the foundation for creating a better Monument Avenue, not just leaving it as a Civil War. It is Monument Avenue. It is not Civil War Avenue. And the people who live there and the historical societies and everything have made it a point to make it a Civil War avenue. And that's why I think Arthur Ashe needs to be there, but other people need to be there as well, and we need to pave the way for people after Arthur Ashe who make great contributions to be there as well.
Thank you, Ms.
Mr. Mayor, could we suspend the rules and applaud this lady?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's not because she's from the 5th District. It's because she brought a sobering thought to it, and to respond to her, I would like to say that much of this issue is being received from the standpoint of an attack, that we are taking something, that we're intruding. But the young lady is making a very valid point. Tonight will mark whether or not we will touch upon those hallowed grounds to start that process, and she will be able to witness whether or not what you talked about 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 years from now, we will start that process tonight if we can get beyond the fact that it has been reserved for a certain segment of history. If we move beyond that, then I think we may be on the way, and she may be able to see the fruit that may be born of this meeting if we do the right thing.
Bill Heisler is next, followed by...
Excuse me. Officer, this gentleman needs you to come down and talk to him. Help him find a place outside.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Clerk, and the Ashe family. I am Bill Heisler. I reside at 4424 English Road, Richmond, Virginia. Arthur Ashe and I were born in basically the same era of negative thinking, and both of us, in their own way, suffered. He was a hero and is a hero to his people and an example of decency to us. And he struggled through hard times, not unlike what we had to go through. We have changed many ways. The progressive change still occurring. However, I am opposed to placing a monument of Arthur Ashe on Monument Avenue. Why? Simply because the monument honors men of another era under different circumstances. They were not traitors. They were not even editors. They simply lost the war. We should not erect monuments to anyone on Monument Avenue, not even monuments to such heroes as John Fitzgerald Kennedy or his brother Bobby, not even monument there to Dr. Martin Luther King, and in some case, perhaps, not even to Rosa Parks. Simply because yet another time frame has occurred, I advocate putting the monument at Bird Park, where we can see the youth develop their championships. That would be the true honor. Thank you.
Tony Lundy is next, followed by Ed Clark.
Ladies and gentlemen, the whole purpose tonight is to find an appropriate way to honor...
Mr. Lundy, come a little bit closer to your microphone and tell us where you're from, please.
Danville, Virginia.
Okay.
The whole purpose tonight is to find an appropriate way to honor a native son of Richmond and Virginia. Arthur Ashe was a true Virginia gentleman. He was a cut above the tennis personalities that we watch on TV today. Not only was he a great tennis player, but he was a role model for children to get an education, to succeed against all odds. He was also an activist for equal opportunity, but I don't think that he would approve of the activism that would rub salt in old wounds and stir up old controversies. And I don't believe that he would approve of being a pawn by some politicians with an axe to grind or maybe an agenda. I think Mr. Ashe deserves much better than that. He deserves a monument that would be free of controversy at a location like a school to inspire children, or a sports complex to inspire other athletes. However, if a controversy does exist, it should be about what is appropriate and not about race. If people feel it's important to have a black honored on Monument Avenue, I agree, it is. So let's put up a monument to the thousands of black American Southerners who fought along Lee and Jackson. After all, Monument Avenue was created to be a lasting tribute to the men in gray who fought and died and shed blood defending this Commonwealth during the war between the states, and that honor should extend to blacks as well as whites. Thank you.
Ed Clark is next, followed by Wayne Byrd.
My name is Ed Clark. I'm from Danville, Virginia, and I have nothing at all against Arthur Ashe. I think he was a great man, but I do not think that Monument Avenue is a place for Mr. Ashe. I think Byrd Park is. And one other thing I'm going to say before I leave here is one thing that really saddens me is people don't know their history. Thank you.
Wayne Byrd is next, followed by Thomas Morris.
My name is Wayne Byrd. I'm president of the Danville chapter of the Heritage Preservation Association. I'm 11th generation Virginian, and that's what brings me here. Richmond is your hometown, but it is my state capital, and that is something that the members of the council need to take into consideration on their decisions. Tonight I've heard a lot of good speeches made. The word racism probably shot more than pistol at the OK Corral tonight. But I've learned a lot about Arthur Ashe that I wasn't aware of when I was here a couple of weeks ago. And I have a respect for the man. And I think that's what the underlying issue is here on Monument Avenue, is that respect for each other's cultures, each other's values, and each other's traditions. And that is the underlying factor. Racism's thrown in when you don't understand that and you can't answer it. That is a simple way to answer it. We of the Heritage Preservation Association think a statue to Arthur Ashe is long overdue, but not on Monument Avenue. We see Monument Avenue as hallowed ground for Confederate soldier monuments, and the blood that was spilt on that second line of defense has made that hallowed, and that's what has made Monument Avenue what it is. When those monuments were erected, there was no Monument Avenue, and Monument Avenue was created around those monuments. And I thank you for staying up so late this evening and allowing us to talk. Good evening.
Thomas Morris is next, followed by Denise Verdi.
Tommy Morris, Virginian. My family's been in this state since about 1619. My great-great-great-great-grandfather fought in the American Revolution. His son fought in the War of 1812, and his son and a number of his brothers fought and died for the cause. I think it's totally inappropriate to place Arthur Ashe on Monument Avenue. That area was designated for that purpose a long, long time ago. I've heard of a number of good ideas here tonight, and I think any one of them would be better. Thank you.
For the edification of the speaker, the code which restricted Monument Avenue to Confederate soldiers was lifted. The avenue is now open to additional statues. That was a change was codified in 1990, which opens it up to additional statuary.
Political correctness did not.
No, it was a matter of justice.
Denise Verdi is next.
My name is Denise Verdi, and I'm from Providence, North Carolina. I'm here tonight as a concerned citizen to address an issue that, if not handled properly, could have negative effects that transcends generations. I feel the statue of Arthur Ashe should not be placed on Monument Avenue, but in a more suitable location to honor his athletic contributions. There's nothing I can say about Arthur Ashe that has not already been said. Everyone is aware of his contributions as an athlete and a man. However, as William Shakespeare wrote in his play, Julius Caesar, the evil that men do lives after them, but the good is often interred with their bones. Don't let the good Arthur Ashe did be buried on the dirt of controversy. Do not allow his memory to be tarnished by the evils of racism, ignorance, and personal hatred. A man's contributions during his lifetime are only as good as how he is remembered. The placement of Arthur Ashe's statue will determine the fate of his memory and Monument Avenue is not the suitable location. Arthur Ashe has earned a place in our hearts. Let his memory receive its rightful place of honor in our history. I bring with me tonight a petition that we had signed down in North Carolina that also opposes the placement of the statue on Monument Avenue. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes my list of speakers, sir.
I want to know if there are other Richmonders who indicated when I took the poll that they would like to speak, who have been overlooked. If that is the case, then I'd like them to move to my right so that we can recognize them. If there are other Richmonders who, when I took the poll, indicated that they wanted to speak. Young lady? City residents of the city of Richmond. All right. Now, sir, please do come forth. I'm not going to ignore her. I just want to get the, all right. Are you a resident of Richmond, sir?
No, I'm not.
All right, young lady, you come right up and you'll be next. No, she's a lady. You let her speak first.
Great.
If then the individuals are not from Richmond, they indicate at least the area they're from.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Young and City Manager Bob and all the guests here tonight. My name is Gail Godwin. I reside in Henrico County. I'm an admirer of Arthur Ashe and also his ideals. Arthur Ashe was not just a great tennis player. He was an advocate for human rights and a model of strength and character befitting any great leader in times of opposition and adversity. He was an example of dignity, strength, and humaneness. His statue belonged on Monument Avenue. The so-called Confederate heroes on Monument Avenue were not heroes. They were tyrants. According to Webster's definition, a tyrant are rulers who exercise power oppressively and brutally. To glorify the Confederates is sending a self-destructive message to our sons and daughters that tyranny is right and worthwhile, when in fact all tyrants down through history meet with a destructive end. Because all people are endowed with what is called natural law, God-given rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, his statue needs to be placed there to give the powerful message to all people and to bring to the senses of the Confederate idolizers and those who still believe in oppressive, brutal control of others, no matter how it's disguised, that their belief is self-destructive and unrealistic, a belief that ends in defeat, shame, and waste. Place your self-respect in its proper perspective. You are still loved. I urge all of you to send letters, telegrams, or whatever to council members to make sure that his statue is placed on Monument Avenue. And there are other great leaders also who deserve to be placed on Monument Avenue.
Ms. Godwin?
Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
The next gentleman, step forward, please, and give us your name and where you're from.
My name is Barry Stark, and I'm from Warrenton, Virginia. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was born on Monument Avenue, and I was raised in the shadow of all the monuments on Monument Avenue. And I've always been very proud to be from Richmond. I don't live in Richmond now, but I've always been very proud to be from Richmond and to be from Virginia. I've always been proud of Washington, Jefferson, Lee, Jackson, and many others. But perhaps the proudest moment I've had as a Virginian is when this state elected Doug Wilder as the first black governor. And I think that can only be equaled and topped when we see the statue of Arthur Ashe being erected on Monument Avenue. I think this council has a historic opportunity to send a message to the world that Richmond is on the cutting edge of becoming a leader in the area of civil rights. Thank you.
Reverend Edwards, you're next.
Good evening to the mayor, city manager, and council. I stood in the back and I said to myself, well, I wasn't going to speak because I wasn't feeling well. But after hearing what I've been hearing, in the Bible it says that someone must speak out for the folk, and I feel I must speak on this issue. The issue here is not so much what the people are saying, where they want Arthur Ashe statue or how they want it. It's what the people are actually feeling about yesterday, not about tomorrow. You hear people coming from out of state talking about we have petitions that we don't want Arthur Ashe. They have nothing to do with Richmond. You have people that live here that are saying it's hallowed grounds. They don't sign ordinances and laws. You people do that. You said in 1990 any statue that we erect can go there, then it should go there. Arthur Ashe was not just a tennis player, a humanitarian, but he was a veteran. A lot of us are not remembering that fact. So if he was a veteran, then he has a right to go where those veterans. And not only was he a veteran, but he was a veteran of the government that stood. He wasn't a traitor. He wasn't a person who turned his back on an existing government. He was a part of the government that was there. We have to take all those things in consideration. And if we don't put Arthur there now, who and when? Do we wait for Doug to die and put him there? Do we wait for the mayor to die and put him there? When do we put a statue erected for our people?
Advance Auto Parts presents part number 12, The Hand.